Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Updates. We've got some breaking news out of Mason, Ohio, where, well, is it actually Mason, Ohio? Because it's actually Cedar Fair, but everyone's attributing this one to Mason, Ohio. Rightfully so or not, we don't know. But Cedar Fair has officially trademarked Orion and Polaris for rides and entertainment purposes. Danny, I don't know. We've seen Cedar Fair in the past trademark stuff early. Like, we've gotten Fury early. We've gotten Copperhead Strike early. My problem with this is we've never seen them trademark two things. Some people are saying that they're trying to choose between one of these two for a ride name. We see Busch Gardens and SeaWorld do this all the time, that we talked about with, like, Tigress and Twisted Tigers and Uproar. But now we have it with Cedar Fair, and this is kind of out of character for them to do that. They've trademarked fake stuff, one thing, but they've never trademarked two things as if they're trying to make a choice here, correct?
Not to my immediate knowledge here. Now, that doesn't necessarily rule it out that they might be doing that, but it is not, historically speaking, we haven't seen it before. The obvious inclination here is to point towards the Kings Island project because that seems to be one that's happening, and there's a lot of different directions this can go. We talked a couple weeks ago about the possibilities of what this Kings Island project could be. Most people jumping on the Giga Coaster bandwagon, of course. You and I have thrown out a couple of different possibilities that we think are less likely, but might be a little bit more interesting and out of the ordinary from what everyone's expecting. Possibly a wing coaster, possibly a dive, we've talked about a dive coaster, possibly a flying coaster, which Cedar Fair has not done on their own before. So I think we're talking in terms of the Kings Island project, whatever it might be at this point here. And the general rumblings are, and we're going to talk about a completely different mindset in a minute, but thinking of Kings Island 2020, some of the discussions being had are, is the X-Base area, which is essentially just Flight of Fear now, going to go through a retheme? And because of the quasi-space theme already present on Flight of Fear, are they going to change the name of Flight of Fear to one of these two and then use the other as the name of whatever this project is? I would think if that's going to happen, I would think Polaris is probably the Flight of Fear name, just a gut feeling. Orion, to me, sort of has the feeling of a Centurion because Orion's the hunter. That seems to me more likely to go that way. That being said, I don't know if that's what's going to happen here. I just get a gut feeling that that's not what's going to happen here. I feel like there's minimal gain in retheming Flight of Fear, except for maybe a T-shirt here or there. It doesn't seem to make too much sense. Well, I think, if anything, we're deciding between two names for one ride here if we're talking about 2020.
Well, what's interesting is during Winterfest this year, people were posting, pictures from inside Flight of Fear that had, like, Santa Claus on them, and there was, like, calendars in the background. There were star charts down on his table. It said Project Flight of Cheer. And now we get these Orion and Polaris. So this is kind of like Kings Island has given us something here. So I feel like it's something for Kings Island. And Kings Island is trying to point us in some direction. I don't understand why. Because one, Orion's an all right name. Both of them are very generic, number one. Both of them very generic names. And I guess you could add on numbers like they did with Fury. I don't know if that spices this up any whatsoever because Fury already did it. But we have these signs up in Flight of Fear that had the star charts on them. Now we get Orion and Polaris. Everyone's automatically jumping to the big project. But what I've been hearing is that there's a possible use for these two names on the Racer. And you're going to be like, what are you talking about?
And that these are not related in any way to the 2020 project.
So the general theory is that they're going to rename Red Racer, Blue Racer, Orion, and Polaris. to give it more. Now, there's a lot of things I don't like about this. This is what I've heard. I'm giving you what I've heard, Danny, okay? So I've heard that they're going to rename the two of them, probably as a throwback to the old Coney Island where it was called the Shooting Star, something like that. And it's a throwback to that they're going to name them with these star themes. My only problem with this is there's multiple problems I have with this theory. One, it's really not on X-Base. I know it goes all along this area, but the entrance to the ride is on the Coney Mall. So you really can't make the...
Well, at this point, that wouldn't really be... They wouldn't be lumping it into X-Base just because they're doing that necessarily.
Necessarily. You could have it as a throwback to, like we said, the old Coney Island where Racer was kind of born, in quotation marks, if you will. My other problem with it is why are you then trademarking it now? So the park's already opened. You've already done, some Racer work. We were speculating a lot that we would get more work. We know GCI came in and retracked a whole bunch of it. Does this mean that Racer is going to get more work over this next season, over this next off season? Because I was speculating that they would put new lighting packages on it. And if indeed they are getting a new roller coaster for 2020, we know Cedar Fair loves to spruce up the area around said roller coaster.
Right.
And this roller coaster is going to run almost parallel to Racer. And from every indication, the 2020 project is going to run right alongside Racer. Are they then going to put new lights on Racer, new things on Racer, rename the two trains, Orion, Polaris, and maybe we get a bigger themed area like chaser lights going all the way out and coming all the way back in? I don't know. But it just seems strange to me that, one, they're trademarking these two names right now in the beginning of May. Two, we've never seen them do two trademarks at once. I don't think they're choosing between the two of them. The only other conclusion I can come up with is that they're building another racing coaster, or there's going to be like major hills on this coaster that are going to be named Orion and Polaris. Some people out there are saying it's going to be a strata coaster because Polaris is 405 or whatever feet away from, light years away from Earth. I don't believe that for a second. We've also seen some websites come out saying that, there's a project called Constellation 355. Some people are casting doubt upon that as well.
Yeah, that the legitimacy, at least as of when we heard of it this evening, we went to actually formally search for it, not just clicking the link. It is not searchable at this point, so the legitimacy of that is being questioned. So, I'm sure in the next few days we'll maybe have some more clarity on whether or not that is a legitimate filing or not. We'll talk about that. I guess if it turns out to be true, we will talk about that more then, I guess. The interesting thing about these two names are Polaris is a single star, while Orion is a constellation of stars. So they're not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be sort of if they did Orion and Aries or something like that. That would make a little bit more sense. Polaris and Orion, it's a little strange because it seems like they're different in enough ways to really make you question it.
Yeah, and I think sitting here right now, I think my gut is telling me that neither of these that something's wrong here. That something is wrong, and I know a lot of news stations are trying to pick up that one of these two names is going to be for the 2020 project. Right now, I am not on that bandwagon at all. Like I said, these two names are very generic. We were Fury. We pretty much said the same thing with Fury, but that turned out to be okay for a name. But I don't think you can go to that well that often, and not since if you look at recent history at Cedar Fair, it's all the 2-word names: Yukon Striker, Copperhead Strike, Steel Vengeance, all the recent coasters that were big. And I will say, even like Hang Time Railblazer, me and you kind of had this conversation last night. It still sounds like 2 words, although they're putting it word type as to 1.
Right, they have them stylized as 1 word, but if you look at the Hang Time, Knott's logo, and I say that out loud as I type it into Google Images. If you search the image, they have it stylized where the T is capitalized.
Yeah.
There's no space between the two words, but they have it stylized as if it's two words.
And Railblazers the same exact way as that. They have the two.
Well, and Railblazers in all caps, and they have the the rail is green and the blazer is the burnt orange, so they have it again stylized as if it's two words, even though it's joined into one. And that's fine.
And I like the name Orion because Orion the Hunter, if you have it interact with the beast, we know that the clearings are going all the way out to beast now. So you might have a few interactions maybe on the off chance, probably not a whole lot, but Kings Island has always been hesitant to, jump on board that Beast storyline. They kind of did with Son of Beast, and they've had plenty of opportunity to do it in Haunts and doing it in other places, and they just haven't done it at all. I just don't see Orion or Polaris, especially everyone's jumping on board, but where are all the Son of Beast people? Everyone, all last year was like Son of Beast is returning, and now everyone's on board with this Orion and Polaris stuff that I just don't buy yet. I feel like it's more likely to be renaming of the two racer trains, even though I agree with what you said, that they don't really match together very well. Even though I agree with what I said, why are you doing it now? What else are you doing? I still don't feel that either of these two words is for the Project 2020. I just don't believe it.
So when we go to the trademark search website, what do you actually have to type in to find Cedar Fair?
Yeah,
is the owner name. Oh, there it is. Okay, find it.
Just type in Cedar Fair.
Okay, I found it. So let's just go back and look at some of the trademarks that they filed in the last few years. So we have Orion, Polaris. And I'm just going to pick out the coaster names. Hang Time, Copperhead Strike, the Ledge was never used.
The ledge was never used, yeah.
The Ledge was never used. It's still listed as live. Railblazer, Centurion is listed as dead, so we'll assume that was at one point in the running for Fury. Voyage to the Iron Reef, Fury 325, but also remember that they did file just Fury at one point.
Now, do you have the dates when they filed? So when did they file Centurion versus when they filed
Fury 325 was filed June 9th, 2014, so we're about a month ahead of that timeline. Centurion was filed October 18th, 2013. So even earlier.
And do we have a date for when they just filed for Fury?
January 23rd, 2014.
So Centurion came first.
Then Fury, and then Fury 325. And we're kind of at a point where we're in between when they filed for Fury and Fury 325 at the moment.
It's just strange that they would file for both of them at the same exact time here, correct? Both of them are filed Orion and Polaris.
Yes, and the filing date is listed here as April 30th, so,
And I could be completely wrong. I just don't feel that these are the names that we're going to get.
It very well may not be.
Because Kings Island has actually done a real phenomenal job with naming and logos. Diamondback, still one of the best logos and names for a coaster, theme-wise, in Cedar Fair. Banshee, great name. Wish it would have went to Cedar Point, but whatever. Logo, one of the best logos anywhere. Mystic Timbers, not a terrible name. Pretty cool logo, too, with the tree out there. So they've really done a phenomenal job as of late with logos and names at Kings Island. And I just feel that something like Polaris or Orion is kind of like Polaris, like you even said, isn't that like an ATV company? Why would you want to
make it a Maverick style ride?
And yeah, exactly, right. And Orion, the first thing I think of Orion is Orion Slave Girls. That's why I posted on Instagram from the good old Star Trek.
Well, and you know what? I am kind of interested, and I'm going to look at this now. I'm kind of somewhat surprised that they were able to get Polaris, to be completely honest with you.
Well, I think it has all the determination is what you're actually filing it for. So,
Right.
like if they're filing it for an entertainment ride, for a ride specifically to sell merchandise. But I know through other companies too, people will challenge stuff all the time because they don't want anything to be referred to as that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a
Marvel has had a hell of a time, marketing some of its lesser known characters because they're so generically named that usually, even if you see on like action figure boxes, it'll say Marvel's whoever, like Marvel's Whiplash, because someone else.
Because they don't even know.
Yeah, because it's just so generic that the only way that they can get a trademark is to put Marvel in front of it, so that you can have that. So I don't know. I just don't feel like this is, and to be honest, looking around the chain, I don't see where else we're talking. So, we're assuming this is for Kings Island, but let's assume for a second that it's not Kings Island. I have no idea what they would be doing unless they were doing like more single rails or something. Like I could see that being a single rail name, but who in the chain would be getting a single rail?
Well, what's interesting, how about this? What's interesting is that Railblazer uses the ATV cars.
Yeah.
I mean, the theme to Railblazer would be perfect for a roller coaster name of Polaris.
They would question that real quick, though. I would.
They would, and they ran into the same issues. Paramount ran into the same issues with the Italian job coasters, and eventually had to modify them because they were being, questioned by BMW because the cars actually, because they had rights to the movies, but they did not have the rights to the Mini Coopers like the Paramount Films did to use the cars in the movie. So especially when it went to Cedar Fair had to dumb down the cars even more so that they looked nothing like the Mini Coopers from the movie.
Well, I think we'll leave you with that for now because, like I said, there's not a whole lot of information here. We're going to have to keep an eye on what's happening, here with these two names. But I don't.
This is us just speculating on a bunch of different things. That way, when we find out what's happening, the apology line can start down there in 6 months from now.
No. When we make real predictions, you'll know it, and then you can apologize.
Well, you heard most of this here first. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
So anyway, thank you for joining us here tonight on COASTER-net Update. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Danny Miller, Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Red Warriors.
See you guys. Thanks.